Online, everyone's good to go. How many do we have online at the moment? Just so I get a sense of how big the room is, I'm going to pretend. 33 online, okay. And everyone's good to go?
Yep.
Amazing. Well, look, unfortunately, we don't have a welcome today because Nadina Dixon, who was going to be with us today, had some last-minute business that she needed to attend to. So I'm really sorry to hear that, and she's not able to do that work. I won't put you on the spot, Craig. I just saw you come up on the screen. But what I will do is just do a heartfelt acknowledgement that we are meeting today on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my deepest respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all of the wonderful Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that we have the privilege of working alongside in this work, and those of you in the room, as well as I can see online. Thank you so much for walking alongside us in this work and accepting us in walking alongside this in the work that you do. I think it's a really apt time for us to constantly. I was at Sydney University this morning delivering a speech, and it was really interesting that there were so many kind of it was on everyone's lips. So I think 2 weeks ago we were at Sydney University at another time, and it was in the wake of the Four Corners episode where we were reeling from what has been uncovered around, and what many of us in this work know, around 350 missing and murdered Aboriginal women in this country, and the shock and the horror at that juncture, but how quickly it is that we sort of get on with the business status quo. And so I just want to start really by acknowledging that we're not going back to status quo. We need to start with an approach that actually centres and puts forward our First Nations, particularly women, but also men and children, non-binary people in this space. It's incredibly important, and it's my absolute commitment to you and my team that we will continue to do that. And sometimes, like my auntie says, be pulled up and sit in that discomfort, because this is the first step, right? So I just wanted to start with that, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to deliver a welcome this morning. Look, I won't talk for very long because you see a lot of me already talking and having the microphone. But what I do want to do is just acknowledge the incredible contribution of each and every one of you to the work that we do here. I won't single out people like we've got our sex crime boss here in the audience and others who are eminent. You're all eminent. Forward for the single purpose of making change so that somebody else after you does not have to go through or be put through what you have been put through. And we are humbled every single day with our clients and our advocates and all of those that we're working alongside that continue to do that incredibly generous thing. And we must always remember that this comes from a place of generosity, of spirit, and a commitment to social justice. So I do want to thank you in particular, the survivor advocates here today. It has been a really big year. I won't rehash. I'm hoping that you've got a copy of the annual report there. If not, please feel free. You don't have to stay sitting. Please feel free to go up and grab one if you want to flick through it as we're speaking today. But there has been a remarkable contributions and remarkable achievements this year. Right across our counselling services, we saw an increase in demand by 15%. We resecured our national sexual abuse and redress support service. We provided over 15,000 individual trauma counselling sessions nationwide. And we continue to place the people that we're working with and alongside in this journey at the centre of all of our responses, and that's what we take pride in, supporting people where they're at along the continuum of support and not sort of, I guess, treating everybody with the same with the same approach. So it's been incredible, and the work of Tara and her team, leading her team, and a very extremely talented and committed senior counselling service management staff. We have seen huge developments in that space, and a recognition of the very high quality of the work that we do. I just want to touch on a few more things. Natasha is online, our head of training and professional services and consulting. Tash has really brought the organisation forward. I've never seen so much demand for responding with compassion and trauma-informed approaches and vicarious trauma support because of the Respect at Work reforms that have been going on. Natasha has been kind of working off her feet, and we delivered a training to over 2,200 people in community this year across a range of government, non-government and NGO sectors. 28 policy and law reform submissions that we contributed to, as well as hearings, as well as sitting on quite a number of advisory committees across the country. And I want to do a shout out to Laura. I don't know if Laura Henschke's on the line, but she's on parental leave right now, and want to send out a special shout out to herself as well as Taryn. And of course, we cannot forget the National Survivor Advocate Program, which has been absolute vision from the first get-go. I've been with the organisation now for close to 18 months. It's taken a little while to get off the feet, but we're really excited that tonight we'll be able to announce the advisory group to the National Survivor Advocate Program that is really going to be turbocharging reform efforts in this country to really put a full stop to sexual, domestic and family violence. So thank you so much, and I look forward to introducing Harry, who's going to say a few words. And then last but not least, some of the key reforms, and we have to sort of talk about this around the affirmative sexual consent and narrowing of that mental health loophole. Coercive control reforms have been absolutely huge, and we've done submissions in quite a number of states and territories in that regard. And we've also helped shape the new Lighthouse pilot and Everett list in the Family Law Court, and I'm looking forward next week to announcing some very exciting expansions in that space with the Chief Justice and the Attorney General. I really also want to take this opportunity to give a special shout out to Gail Mayer, who is, has been on our board and steering this ship for quite some time. We are absolutely indebted to you for helping shape this organisation to make sure that we always put our clients and our community first, and particularly regional, rural and remote clients with disability. You have been fearless, and you've constantly brought us back to why we're here. And so I want to thank you for that. I think we've got some flowers. I don't know if one of you wanted to. And to our ambassadors and our supporters, I also want to shout out to you. We have had a huge amount of support, not only from New South Wales Health, the Department of Social Services, the South Australian Government and others, but also our very important partners in the corporate sector. And you'll note that we're here with IAG today at the complete generosity of providing the space, providing all the catering, but not least, IAG provided, through the partner of NRMA, provided $2 million to the services, yes, which we have been using day in, day out to make sure we can pick up the phone for people who need to speak to our trauma specialist counsellors, and also providing really important emergency relief for people who are in a situation where they're trying to escape and live a life free from violence. So I want to particularly thank IAG for, and I don't know if you're going to say anything, Catherine, but no, over there. And we have a range of other partners in the group and philanthropic supporters. I have to single out Pinnacle Charitable Foundation as well for really supporting and driving the work in the National Advocacy Program, but also the National Survivor Advocate Program itself, which is sponsored by Pinnacle Charitable Foundation. So Without ado, I don't think I mentioned our ambassadors either, but I've got some of them online. So thank you to our ambassadors as well for reaching different fields. I won't talk about the incredible amount of work we've done in reaching out into other fields and sectors. You all know that we're not sort of dealing with this as a private matter anymore, and we recognise that everybody has to play their part if we want to put a full stop to sexual, domestic and family violence, particularly in meeting our ambitious goal of ending gender-based violence in a generation. Everyone does need to play their part, and we really appreciate our ambassadors, our advocates and everybody in this room who is making that conversation hit different places and making sure that everyone knows how they can and are facilitated and able to play their part. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to now pass on to Megan Clement-Kuzner, who is a board member of ours and has been for quite some time and has been made an incredible contribution, particularly bringing a very, very important lens from the disability space. So thank you so much. Meg's going to say a few words on behalf of our board.
Thank you, Hayley, and it's wonderful to be here with you tonight. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation here in the IAG rooms in Sydney, and wherever we are in Australia, acknowledging that we have many people joining us online. We're on Aboriginal land, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And particularly, I'd like to extend my respects to anyone, any First Nations colleagues or members of the organisation who are here tonight or stakeholders. So it's a great pleasure to be part of welcoming you here tonight for the AGM. And I was thinking a little bit tonight as I came here what it really means to welcome people into the organisation. I'm a person who once needed the services of Full Stop Australia, then Rape and Domestic Violence Services Australia, and really know what it means to have been welcomed into the organisation. At that time, I was welcomed into the organisation, provided service by the counsellors who are really doing the core of what we do at Full Stop Australia. But of course, that can't happen without all of the people who are behind that work as well. So I really want to extend our appreciation to the staff of Full Stop Australia, all of the staff for doing what you do. It means more than I can say or that any number of survivors can ever say. But you have made it possible for me, in fact, to go on, and from once needing the services of Full Stop Australia, I'm now able to contribute back to Full Stop Australia. And that's a wonderful feeling. But I know that for those who will never get to say it, the appreciation is very great. So I can see that Tara from the counselling team is here, and I really say that to Tara, but to all of our counsellors and all of the staff at Full Stop Australia. I'd really like to acknowledge also the board of Full Stop Australia, and Hayley has already mentioned Gail, but I think it's really important when we talk about welcoming to acknowledge that people are on different stages of their journey with Full Stop Australia or with the issues of family, domestic and sexual violence. Gail is someone who has been on the journey with Full Stop Australia, previously Rape Crisis, for a very long time, and has had a lot to teach some of us who have joined the organisation later. And we really appreciate that, Gail, all that you've done. And also I'd like to acknowledge some people who are finishing their board journey with Full Stop Australia, including some of our longest serving members, Georgie Smart, who's contributed endless hours to our board, to our governance, and particularly our financial governance. I'd like to also acknowledge Helen Bolton, who contributed this year and has made a fantastic contribution in the short time that she was with the board of Full Stop Australia. And also, also our two previous chairs over the past year, Vijaya and Kate. Was that a question? No. Yes, so I'd like to acknowledge Bidge and Kate. Thank you so much for all of your work in steering the board. And also to those who have joined us in the last year, Natasha, Helen, of course, and others who joined. This won't be exhaustive, I'm sorry, and I'm sure that others will get to this later, but we really appreciate all of the work that's been undertaken in the governance space this year. So in short, the work of Full Stop this year has been ongoing and incredibly important and possibly one of the it's been a year of lightning rod changes, I think, for many of us in this space. So I'd just like to acknowledge that and acknowledge the steering of the ship during that rather turbulent time, and say thank you to all of you who are here tonight, and pass back over to Hayley to continue us on our business. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Meg. And I would also like to introduce somebody that I think that you've been now, that you've actually been really wanting. There's a lot of interest about this next announcement. We've got Harry here today to actually talk to us about our National Survivor Advocate Program, but importantly to announce our new National Advisory Committee to the National Survivor Advocate Program. Harry. Thank you.
Hi everyone, how are we? I also echo what Hayley said with the acknowledgement to country, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander individuals in the room or online today. My name is Harrison James. I'm a 22-year-old survivor advocate, and I was just asked to come here today to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got involved with Full Stop and the National Survivor Advocate Program. So I experienced childhood physical and sexual abuse, and I was physically abused by my father for many years and taken advantage of sexually by my stepmother from the ages of 13 to 16. And at 15, my stepmother fell pregnant to my daughter, who for years I had to pretend was my sister in order to keep it a secret from my father and avoid being physically hurt from him. After my stepmother fled the country and took my daughter with her in 2019, I mourned my child's loss and tried to take my own life. I checked into a mental health rehab and took the initiative to change my path, to utilise my story for good. Since then, a lot of work and healing has been done on myself, and my life changed when I realised it wasn't my fault what happened, but it is my responsibility to do something great with it. That's when I came forward publicly with my story in only March of this year, to which I released a video on Instagram detailing my story. It wasn't done to get notoriety. It was done because I simply was suppressed and silenced for so long. In my eyes, I had no other outlet in telling my story. And if I could help just one other survivor with my insights, I won over those perpetrators who did what they did to me. And also, I just wanted to be seen, heard, and validated for my pain. After years of being told that I was a man and I couldn't feel emotions, or I was lucky that I even received what I did, all I wanted to be was believed. That video in March this year received over 41,000 views and solidified somewhat of a social media following for myself. On social media, a place where people exclusively post a highlight reel of their lives, only showcasing their beautiful bodies, fast cars or mansions, I spoke about the most personal and intimate details of my story. And the contribution of sacrificing my story for everyone to comment on and have a say about, for me to still put it out there in the face of that fear, if I do say myself, is quite remarkable. Thank you. But it paid off positively because people responded to the vulnerability and the courage it took for me to do that. And to date, I've received thousands of messages from people disclosing their stories to me. And it's an absolute privilege that survivors like me see me as a safe space to come forward to, because I am for the victim today what I needed at the time when it was happening to me. yeah, so that led me to start a clothing brand and start actually a condom brand with consensual warnings on it, and become a ambassador for Polished Man. But my greatest achievement to date is being a part of the Full Stop Australia Advisory Group. So yeah, a lot of things that I try to do to get people comfortable with the uncomfortable. I got involved with Full Stop through the Survivor Hub, who we all love, and signed up for the National Survivor Advocate Program. And since then, I've put my hand up for multiple opportunities that Full Stop has provided me with, and gained some very real traction in my advocacy career. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 16 men experience physical and/or sexual violence by a current or previous partner, and 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys experience childhood sexual abuse before their 18th birthday. Having conversations surrounding violence and abuse can be extremely difficult, but as these statistics show, it is all too prevalent throughout our culture. Excuse me. As a survivor, the National Survivor Advocate Program created by Full Stop is so imperative in reshaping the way we all view violence. It shouldn't be something we succumb to or accept or have to move on from. It should be something we call out and stand up to. The National Survivor Advocate Program is revolutionary in the way it gives survivors the platform to speak up and the opportunity to reclaim our narratives, to own our stories and utilise them for change. It's so important because as a survivor, you're a shell of what you once were. And for there to be a national organisation that recognises you, makes you feel seen and heard, and wants to assist you in your advocacy endeavours is truly phenomenal. Full Stop is one of the few organisations that realise the untapped resource that is lived experience. For an example, I was at an anti-racism campaign a few weeks ago now, and they had 3 straight white males running that campaign. It just doesn't make sense at all. So what Full Stop understands is that lived experience is not cosmetic and it doesn't tick boxes. It speaks to the reality of the issues that we want to resolve, which is so important. It's so important that we put survivors on the forefront of that. I'm obsessed with my legacy. I know that sounds a little bit egotistical, but I'm obsessed with leaving the world a better place than what it was before I was here. So I don't want to be defined by the fact that this is what happened to me. I want to be defined by this: my leadership, my ability to articulate what I've gone through, my resilience to go through hell and get out the other end of that, a kinder, more empathetic human being that just wants to help people. And I thank Full Stop and Hayley in particular for providing me with opportunities that lead to my dream of changing the world. I now have the absolute privilege of introducing the advisory group for Full Stop's National Survivor Advocate Program, but please bear in mind, I will only be using first names before we undertake a process to gain permissions to use people's first names, should they wish to. So we have Galina, Jake, Jocelyn, Nanushka, Libby, Lynn, Ranjita, Samantha, Sarah, Shelley, Sonia, and myself. Round of applause for those people, I think. And I can say we've already had our first meeting, and I was in absolute awe of how amazing each individual is. The greatest injustice and violence is that it doesn't discriminate. It can come from anyone and happen to anyone. But I can say the advisory group is very intersectional in its membership. So I feel like we can cover all bases when we come to making decisions that affect survivors. And it represents how diverse survivors actually are. But thank you so much to everyone at Full Stop, Hayley, and for having me this evening and giving me the opportunity to speak. And now I'd like to introduce Lisa Madden to talk. Yeah.
So this is obviously why we're all here. Thank you so much, Harry. That was unbelievable and always is. And I think I've never seen staff members of ours so excited than after they did the interviews for the National Survivor. They're like, every single one is a powerhouse. So, and we have representation from almost every state and territory, and from a diverse range of ages, genders, sexual orientation, background, culture. So really excited about what you're going to achieve, and we will do our absolute best to support you to turbocharge. And I think also want to acknowledge the survivor advocates, there were 160 applications for these positions. So, and it wasn't a matter of, it was more, it was, obviously terribly difficult, and we were bringing in sector stakeholders from all across the country to make sure that we had a real intersectional and genuine approach to how we did that. But I also want to acknowledge that we've got over 250 people now who are part of the National Survivor Advocate Program, and the advisory committee, they're essentially the custodians of this program, and they will be there to make sure that every survivor who is part of this program is afforded with the opportunities that they need to be able to make the difference that they are so generously wanting to make. So, so thank you so much for picking up the mantle, all of you who are here as well. And now I want to introduce Lisa, if you're here, Lisa Madden, who has really been part, well, she's managed the very first sort of project of the National Survivor Advocate Program, which is extremely exciting. And it's exactly what Harry said. It's about centering people who have the experience, have the expertise, and making sure that they have the biggest possible platform to be heard so that they can generate change. So Lisa, I'm going to hand on to you to say a few words about the production.
So I would also like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation and the unceded land in which we live and work. So I was the producer for a series of 3 videos that were made for Full Stop Australia with survivors, including Nanushka and Harry, who are here today. They spoke so beautifully and so articulately. It was just an absolute joy. Incredibly, though, we came up with, well, maybe not incredibly, we ended up with over 3 hours worth of footage, which transcribed into 72 pages, and needed to cut this down into kind of 3 minutes or a couple of blocks of a few minutes. So it was very challenging, and that the stories and what they have to say is so important. It was very difficult to give it the gravitas that it needed and not make it feel glib, etc. So hopefully we've not done that and have done some justice to it. It's a difficult topic, as people have said. People don't necessarily want to hear about it, but as Sarah says in, I think, this video, that this issue affects everyone, and if it affects everybody, it needs to be spoken about. So what they say.
It takes such a long while to come to terms with things, particularly when it's abuse that happens since you're a child. Like, you don't know any other reality.
No one should have to experience violence of any kind.
I went through a massive amount of victim blaming. Things like, why didn't you fight harder? Where were you? What were you wearing?
I know for a fact, if I saw a man in the media talking about what I'm talking about now, that could have saved my life. So I could be for the little boy today what I needed at the time.
I was told by my perpetrator that these incidents of unwanted sexual contact and sexual touching in the lead up to an attempted rape were my fault, and they were only happening because it was my idea. And the fact that I'd had a freeze response meant that I must actually want it.
Every profession should be safe. And there's no difference whether I've been sexually assaulted as a waitress, working at the office, or as a sex worker. It should have never happened at any of those workplaces. I also recently found out that I am autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic. Before my diagnosis, it was really easy for someone to convince me that they pushed me because they are my friend, or this is happening to me because they are nice, and that it's actually me who is doing something wrong, and that I am impolite.
I think we need to recognize that women and girls throughout their lifespan, from birth to death, are vulnerable to sexual assaults. There are 50 sexual assaults taking place in aged care in Australia every week. Nobody believes them. Nobody believes that older women in aged care can be sexually assaulted because they're not seen as sexual beings.
I felt that I didn't stand a chance. My parents wanted for me to have an arranged marriage. You know, the word sex was never said.
I remember sobbing really hard and going to the room where my parents are sleeping, and they were asking me so many questions, but I wasn't coherent, and all I wanted was my mom to hug me. And she seemed, I guess it might be intergenerational trauma, but she seemed like she couldn't really do it. So I physically took her arms and put it around me to try and feel better.
I also wish as a child that someone noticed any of the signs of a child going through abuse, and I wish that someone called the police or called Child Protection Services.
Talking with the Full Stop Helpline has been such a life-saving thing.
Flood society with help. There should be more centres for therapy than there are McDonald's. You know where to get a cheeseburger, but you don't know where to get help, you know?
So whether you're a survivor or not, you know a survivor, this issue affects everyone. It's an issue that needs to be spoken about, and amazing organisations and charities like Full Stop Australia are doing this and doing this every day.
I'm still alive. That's the impact, really, the fact that I'm sitting here. That's the impact.
A life free from violence is possible, but we all need to play our part. Help us put a full stop to sexual, domestic and family violence. So thank you so much, everyone. I think enough said. I do want to do a special shout out to Kat at IAG and to Abby there in the back. Also to Catherine from my team and Hanny, wherever you are. Your hands up, yes, who have actually been working so incredibly hard to document the important work that every member of our team has contributed to over the past 12 months. It's been a really huge effort, and to every single one of our team, thank you so much for all that you do every day. You know, you're the reasons that we turn up and that we have faith that things are going to change. And yeah, so I guess a heartfelt thank you as well to all of those who are part of our team that made all of this possible. That's the end of these parts of this part of the event. So what we would do is welcome you to just have a few moments, stand up, spread your wings, and just have a stretch and grab something to eat or drink. We will reconvene in around 10 minutes, Abby. In around 10 minutes. So that will be at 6:40, and that will be for the formal AGM business. So for all members of Full Stop Australia to please come back and join us then. Thank you, everyone.